Thanks so much for making the film available to us here at Mayhem, and welcome back to the stage the directors Steven Kotanski, Jeremy Gillespie, and producer Casey Walker.
First question, how did the dog like the movie?
Loved it.
I loved it. I loved it.
I was going to say maybe there's a spotlight over here, maybe we should stand in it. Then people can see. Well, that's an idea. It's a really, really fantastic world that you've created, a mythology that you've created, and I was wondering if you could take us back to the genesis of the idea and how much kind of myth-making you had to make yourselves.
Well, it really came out of like a series of conversations. We were finishing up on Father's Day in, I guess, 2011, and just talking about the kinds of movies that we were really interested in, and sort of like the tone that we would like to maybe attempt. And yeah, it just talking back and forth. I think it came out of that, sort of spiraled out of that. We had images that we wanted to sort of capitalize on, things like that.
Yeah, it was really just like a certain type of horror movie that we wanted to make. That was the genesis of this project. That we hadn't seen anything that was like creature-centric and like kind of with a Lovecraftian style mythology that played it straight and wasn't like a goofy horror comedy. So we wanted to challenge ourselves and make something that evoked a sense of dread that was unlike anything we made up to this point.
Yeah, like almost like a Lovecraft without like adapting Lovecraft, I guess.
And how deep could you go into mythology? I mean, have you got a whole theology worked out for kind of elder gods and kind of names of things?
We definitely have like the whole thing figured out. Yeah,
it's mapped out for sure.
For sure, but again, like we kind of we made a very conscious effort to sort of present, like hopefully just enough, but not too much, and kind of like, because personally I love movies that don't really hold your hand through them, so I guess like, there's a little bit of ambiguity for you to figure out.
Yeah, and a lot of our favorite horror movies are ambiguous like that, like something like Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure is a good example, or Michael Mann's The Keep is another one that was an inspiration for this movie.
Definitely.
And when you're developing the project, right from the script stage, you're also thinking that you're going to crowdfund it. There's a huge amount of practical effects in the film. Do you sort of have to?
Totally.
Do you start thinking, well, maybe there are too many in the script? Do you have
there were so many more in the script.
It was so much bigger.
Oh my God!
The original treatment that we did, it was totally unacceptable.
Yeah, it would have been impossible. We didn't actually. Crowdfunding was never like something that we thought about when we were writing it. For sure, that was something that came way later, even after kind of like getting the financing for the movie. That stuff like solely went towards the creature effects, which even when we were writing with the creatures, I don't think we were necessarily thinking about like, oh, how are we going to build this? It was just,
this is what we want to make.
Yeah.
So for Casey, as a producer, how do you go about balancing this nightmare that they want on the screen and actual practical things like money and time?
You said balancing.
Yeah.
Well, no, it just came down to like, this is how much money we can get right now. What can we do with it? And then it was there on them to say, we want to move this forward. This is maybe too big. We can shrink this down. Like, it was not a matter of no. It was a matter of how.
What were the practical things that you could do to make that in terms of like scheduling, in terms of like planning the shoot, in terms of making that work?
Oh goodness, no. No, we knew that we would wind up with our money at this point, and then we just backtracked, and that gave us about 8 weeks of build time if we ended our crowdfunding campaign after, what did we do, 30 days?
That would end up being the full 60.
Yeah, I did do the full 60, but we knew we had a short window, so because in the Canadian system there's a lot of soft dollar, and when you can line things up, but the moment you get it you just have to go, and it takes a considerable amount of time to build this much practical effects, so a lot more time than we actually had. So why we turned to crowdfunding was simply to get that chunk of cash to get Steve's team started like well in advance. Otherwise, I think we'd be building creatures like 3 weeks after we wrapped the movie. So.
And was it one of those things where you could conceptualize the creatures that you could start using that to, build a kind of an approach, getting a cast together? Would you shoot practical effects first, or would you shoot
everything at once?
Yeah,
everything all the time at once.
Every day would have a big effect or multiple effects or like an entire creature set piece.
Yeah, the schedule.
Mayhem.
The schedule on this movie was totally unrealistic and insane, and we just did our best to make it work. We did have to do a good amount of insert shooting after like the main unit shoot, just to fill in gaps. But
On most films, they'll look at the schedule and go, oh, wow, we have to do this big thing today. And we look at the schedule and go, wow, there's something we don't have to do today. Because there was like a creature, a stunt, all 10 actors. Like something every day was just everything instead of like, hey, we're not firing guns today. This is cool.
But in the past as well, you've been working with kind of Astron 6 projects where you have to do a lot yourself.
everything.
And has that sort of prepared you really well for something like this?
Well, the difference with those movies is we have way more time and we're on our own schedules. With a movie like this where there's like real money involved, there's like a real expectation to deliver in a certain amount of time. So that was very limiting. And it was kind of the new element that we had to deal with, but we still brought a lot of our do-it-yourself kind of
I would say,
tricks.
like after the main shoot, it became like we do everything ourselves again.
I wanted to ask about you've got a really strong, consistent tone throughout the whole thing, which must be really difficult to do when you do practical effects. You've got a lot of stopping and starting, and how hard was that to achieve? Because you try and balance the fact that you've got real people, real actors in there, and again you've got really time-consuming effects that you've got to kind of work in there as well. So, but what's really consistently, how do you manage that?
I think the reason that this movie like has a consistent level of tension is because of our cast. Like we seriously lucked out with our actors, and like the reason this whole movie works is because of them. Aaron was amazing. He was like so method with his approach to this movie that he just brought. He really brought the tension to the movie.
Yeah, he was like a lightning rod for the other actors too, because everybody would kind of like match his enthusiasm. He's very intense. But it was great. It was so cool. He was asking, like, working with Aaron, he's like constantly asking you questions that you have to answer, and he's thinking like well beyond anything that we had ever discussed, which was really interesting. Like he would come in and he'd say like, what do these things smell like? What am I supposed to be like? What's my reaction when I go in this room? Because the first thing would be the smell. And we're like, bad?
Yeah, they smell like shit, I guess.
The casts were amazing. And I would say like sort of the sound and music are also a big factor in keeping the consistent tone throughout the movie.
And do you take a hand in that? You've done a lot of music stuff before.
I did do some of the music in this. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do all of it, honestly, but the schedule it wouldn't work. So we had to call on some friends and some new people. And actually a guy from the UK named Brian Lustmord, who is the most amazing artist. And we originally wrote the movie listening to his music. So like the fact that some of it ended up in the movie is insane.
Brilliant. Casey, as well, what's it like working with two directors instead of one? Does it change the dynamic? Does it make it?
It's a change in the dynamic, but we never would have accomplished this film if it was just one person. Like they divided and conquered, and then when it came to post, it was even more so. Just because of the volume, and together these guys did 300 special effects shots by themselves. We had another company doing like some really, really big stuff, but like they did hands-on for everything. And then when we went back to grab our inserts, like it was just 6 of us in a room filled with slop, and Steve was rebuilding like on the fly. We'd shoot all day, and then he'd go back to his shop at night and like whip something together, and then the very next day he's like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and then we'd shoot it and be like, holy shit, that worked. It was just like like throw everything at it. And then even when we were in pre-production, like Steve was still down at the shop working on the creatures and getting us like right to the line where Joe was on set with the art department, making sure like we built everything in a high school. So we turned our high school into a studio, which allowed us, because they were tearing it down in a couple months, so we could really do whatever the fuck we wanted. Except unfortunately, like blow it up or burn it down.
Which we really desperately wanted to do.
We would have, we joked it would have been awesome in that last shot where you just see the cars and stuff. There was actually like flames and inferno, and Ellen and Mike are just kind of limping out as like fire engines pull up.
Yeah.
But
We were walking out of camera, pleading ignorance as to why the school's on fire.
We're walking away in handcuffs.
We didn't film this. But yeah, if the two of them weren't together and working like a hive mind, this film never would have happened.
It's great. I think it's about time that we got the audience involved and see if they've got any questions for you.
Well, when did you guys get here?
There's a hand up right over here.
Thank you for a wonderful film. It was really fantastic to watch. You mentioned Michael Mann's The Keep as a big influence. Watching it myself, I wondered how much of John Carpenter was an influence, and in particular Prince of Darkness.
We love that movie.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all alive. I don't think we like sat down and were like, well, we're gonna make something like John Carpenter. I think probably that's just so in our DNA that it's hard not to kind of do that. I mean, so many, like, I think John Carpenter is really having a renaissance right now, which is great because he deserves it. But it wasn't like our target to do something like that necessarily.
Yeah, we didn't really have like a list of movies where we were like, we want this beat from this movie and this beat from this. It was more just like tonally movies like Prince of Darkness and The Keep, I think, were our inspirations.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions out there? I say, yeah, just down there.
Was Lucio Fulci's The Beyond in any way an influence? So it was just the scenes in the hospital, some of a little...
Yeah, when we took a step back and looked at it, we're like, oh, okay. Oh, actually,
That's a good point.
Yeah, I never really thought about that.
It's funny because when we look back after making the film, like we're sitting in post, there's all the movies that we were watching at the time didn't make it into the movie, but then all these things that are deep in the subconscious are like, oh shit.
Honestly, like the movies that influenced this the most, like literally, I think would be more like Japanese horror, which maybe you don't really specifically see in it. Of course, again, we love The Beyond. That movie's great.
And like you were saying as well, like with Kiyoshi Kurosawa as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Cure is a great reference point.
Brilliant. Any more questions, sorry? Any hands? Oh, it's gone handless. Has everyone wanted to ask an influence question?
Yeah, that's right.
Good evening, thank you for a wonderful movie. Just a quick question, whether you had an alternative ending by any chance?
No, I think this was always the ending we wanted.
We did intend to shoot it in a different place. Which, we lost every single location on this movie.
The day before we were supposed to shoot it, though.
Yeah, everything fell apart, and yeah, it sucked.
But no, I think that's like more or less the ending to the movie that we always conceived. It certainly ties up what we were trying to say.
Because you said you kind of created a mythology for this. Is it something you'd revisit? Would you go back into this world? Is there other stories to tell within this world?
Here's the sequel idea.
It's called Voids, and we're sending a team of Navy SEALs into the void.
It's our aliens, essentially.
This
war.
I mean, like, maybe not so much necessarily in a film capacity, but we'd like maybe like a graphic novel or something would be very interested in.
Something that doesn't require as much backbreaking labor from us.
Something that we can like give the idea to somebody and then go like lie down on the couch.
There was a Manhole comic, so they could a void graphic novel.
Ooh, a crossover maybe.
Yeah, could the two?
We thought about doing an audio play, maybe.
Well, someone asked us the question. Someone asked this question earlier today if Matt Kennedy, who is Manborg, is also the patient who dies with the scissors. And someone asked if that was how he became Manborg. Because we didn't know this, and we're sitting there.
Which I decided just then.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because the question goes, Steve, is that the same eye that it is the Manborg guy? And he's like, it is.
The truth is that Matt was supposed to be in the whole movie, and he was such a disaster as a person that we had to kill him off.
Such a train wreck.
We've met him, it's true.
I haven't met him personally, but I just
heard stories.
Any other questions out there? Can I just see another hand up?
That's good.
Hi, thanks for a fantastic film, absolutely brilliant. But I guess the question is, you've just covered sequels. When is it out on Blu-ray or DVD, if at all soon?
This guy.
As you guys saw at the beginning, Signature in the UK purchased it. We are just working on the whole rope-a-dope with the US because the United States of good old America are the ones who decide what the day and date is, but that should be figured out in the next couple weeks, and then everyone will kind of know when it's just gonna drop super fast.
There's so much you learn when making a movie at a bigger scale. You learn all the things that you have absolutely no control over, and it's really fun.
Like that lovely day and date. But we are trying to work on a really kick-ass, like special edition Blu-ray that is going to be like the only one, and that everyone gets. So it's like Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, Botswana.
That'll be cool. It's always one of those things of having to buy 2 or 3 versions.
Yeah, and then these guys are like we come.
Please buy 2 or 3 versions.
We have not been paid yet on this movie.
So we just want to make one really big, expensive one.
One giant release that everybody gets to
$100
share.
Blu-ray.
We'll just ship it from continent to continent.
Okay. I'll buy that one.
That's right.
Any more questions? Sorry, just
There's one down here. Nobody's passed it.
he's concentrating on the wording of the question. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's been absolutely a pleasure to be able to host a screening of the film. But please put your hands together and thank our special guests. Thank you, everybody.